Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And we got a lot going on. A lot to cover this morning. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, we are going to hear about the upcoming Twin Tiers Family Forum. And it's called Lessons from Canada on Assisted Suicide. That'll be in the 7 o'clock hour. Before that, we've got a lot to cover. We're going to talk about the New York State budget, which is now official. It was somewhat yesterday, and we covered it a little bit, but we ran out of time, so we'll be talking in depth about that. First, let's go through some, quick stories. Some are updates from past stories we brought to you. Some are news stories, like this. 1 in 3 American men are not working in what is a nearly 20-year low. Just 66% of men in the workforce. The number, did I just say that? Sorry. Just 66% of men were employed or actively seeking a job as of April. The current number, covering men aged 20 and over, is almost exactly as low as it was during the 2008 recession, when rates first plummeted by 7 points in about a year. Now, this is due to numerous issues. Labor trends, including male-heavy industry like transportation, manufacturing, and other labor-intensive fields, are shedding jobs in the last year. Increasing numbers of retirees and male students have also narrowed the working population. But men who are no longer working because of a disability make up the majority who have left the labor force. 51-year-old Andy Breedlove said, "If me and my mom weren't living together, I would have had a really hard time living a life." He quit his work as a gas station manager in 2018 because a bone condition kept him from staying on his feet for long periods of time. "I'd much rather be working," he said. "I'd make a lot more money." Even some young folks have found themselves forced out over disabilities. So just a number that I saw this morning to pass along to you. Okay, yesterday, the Blue Origin New Glenn rocket exploded yesterday on the Florida launch pad in a dramatic scene. Live footage showed the 321-foot tall mega rocket burst into an enormous fireball at the start of a test around 9 p.m., though the Jeff Bezos-owned company made clear there was no reported injuries as a result. Though Bezos described it as a rough day, the test started with smoke coming from the rocket's engine, and the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station launch pad was illuminated. Seconds later, the rocket was consumed by fire, with flames shooting up its side before a huge blast sent sparks flying. The first stage of the rocket, a 188-foot tall rocket booster, was completely engulfed before collapsing. But as the booster was consumed by flames, the rocket's 88-foot tall upper stage tilted and eventually fell. There was a massive doomsday-like fireball, and sparks rained down along the central Florida coastline. A huge mushroom cloud engulfed the launch pad, and towering plumes of smoke billowed into the air. The company said, or Jeff Bezos, I should say, tweeted, "It's too early to know the root cause, but we're already working to find it. Very rough day, but we'll rebuild whatever needs rebuilding and get back to flying. It's worth it." All right, kind of speaking of, I guess, a little bit of the same topic, and this is something that for whatever reason keeps coming up more and more on the program, and it seems to be a topic that people like. The White House has unveiled aliens.gov. Remember, we talked about the, I guess you'd say, purchase or the notification that aliens.gov was going to become a thing. That's right around the time that Trump announced that files would start to be released. Now, we had the release of some files, probably 2-3 weeks ago. But this, as they call it, cheeky new website focused on illegal migrant arrest data and not the UFO disclosure that we all assumed. The eyebrow-raising domain name sparked a firestorm of online speculation when the federal government registered it back in March. Wow, has it been that long, huh? About a month after President Trump pledged his administration would release secret files related to UFOs and extraterrestrials. When you click on aliens.gov, the green banner says they walk among us. And the site, I guess you could call it like a hacker-style website, which plays off the UFO mania that has recently happened. For 60 years, the U.S. government has kept a closely guarded secret. Aliens have been walking among us, living in our neighborhoods and interacting with us in our daily lives. They've shopped in the same stores, attended the same classes as your children, and lived seemingly normal human existences, with one exception. They do not belong here. Below, the text is a live ticker counting federal law enforcement encounters with illegal migrants and a heat map tracking immigration and customs enforcement alien arrests, as they put it. Users can zoom in on different cities and states on the map to get a better picture of the migrants being arrested. The website highlights the total arrests, dates of arrests, criminal charges, countries of origin, and suspected gang affiliation of migrants taken into custody by ICE under Trump. A large red link to an ICE tip line at the bottom of the page encourages users to report suspicious aliens. The website accuses, quote, countless presidents, congressmen, and senior officials of covering up the invasion. Meanwhile, Trump is credited as, quote, the one man who finally had the courage to tell the truth. President Trump was the first to call out the real danger aliens pose to every American family, every community, and the future of our nation. The truth is no longer out there. It's right here, right now. So aliens.gov website, not exactly what was expected when first announced back in March. All right, there's an update. Also, as we talk about constant kind of outrage from the media, from the left, have you seen, we're going to move fast this morning, have you seen that President Trump, it is being reported, could be on a $250 banknote? Should the Treasury Department move ahead with the plan, it would mark the first time a living person's face was slapped on a greenback since 1866. The Treasury Department has confirmed it's moving to produce 250, you get it, for America 250, that's coming up, the celebrations, on the commemorative note with Trump's signature on it. It would be a nod to America's 250th birthday, which is this year. In response to active legislation sponsored by Representative Joe Wilson, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing is conducting appropriate planning and due diligence. Should this legislative mandate be signed into law, the BEP is moving proactively to produce a $250 commemorative note, which will appropriately recognize the 250th anniversary of our great nation. And yesterday, Scott Bessent, who took over Karen Levitt's post as the press secretary, not press secretary, but I guess. This is where she's on maternal leave, and we've had Marco Rubio take over during the briefings. Well, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent took over yesterday and has confirmed rumors that his department has prepared prototypes of a $250 bill featuring the president's face, though an act of Congress would be needed to actually make such a bill a reality. Over 150 years after the last, they made a rule that you can't have someone living on a U.S. bill or coin. That's when, in 1866, when then Superintendent of the National Currency Bureau, Spencer M. Clark, printed his own face on a 5-cent note, prompting Congress to pass an amendment ensuring that currency can only feature those who are deceased. That sounds like an interesting story from Spencer M. Clark. Again, Scott Bessent confirming it. Yesterday, Hakeem Jeffries said he was a hard no on the Trump $250 bill, telling Trump to get over himself. Now, this comes off the heels, if you were following it, obviously the Knicks. A lot of politicians embarrassing themselves trying to show their support for the Knicks. One person was Hakeem Jeffries. It's ironic he said get over yourself when he posted a picture of himself in a Knicks hat, and the photo was so distorted with filters and different ways to make the picture. I mean, he looked 30 years younger. And this is not the first time he's been caught photoshopping his own image to post on various social media. So the idea of get over yourself, kind of ironic from a man who had to show his Knicks fandom and show his support for the Knicks by posting a photo that was so clearly photoshopped to make himself look so much younger, and quite weird, even downplaying cheeks and chin, etc. But he said, hard no on a Trump $250 bill. Get over yourself. The upcoming July 4th anniversary is not about a wannabe king. It's about celebrating the American journey. So I find it interesting. We also called it monopoly money. But what I find interesting about this with Hakeem Jeffries, on a side note, other than the Photoshop photo and other than this statement about wannabe king and no to Trump on a $250 bill, it's been quite quiet about Hakeem Jeffries. If you recall, during the redistricting, the gerrymandering, he was considered a star because they had went so extreme and it looked like they had won the redistricting battle. And they had said, when I say they, the Democrat Party had said it was kind of his first real win, his first thing he could kind of hang his hat on. And that has now since failed because of the Supreme Court decision. We learned yesterday that it looks as if when it's all said and done and the smoke clears, Republicans will have gained about 10 seats in the, quote, redistricting war. So there you are. There's some strange stories. We've got some updates from stories we brought to you. Boy, a couple things I just have to bring up. We are, much to the chagrin of one viewer from yesterday, if they're watching, we do need to report a little bit more on Dr. Jill Biden and her statement that she felt that, or had thought, that Joe Biden was suffering a stroke during that debate. Still took him to that campaign rally, still took him to the Waffle House. So I don't know how concerned she was. What's interesting about this is getting coverage all across the board, and it's not necessarily what you call Republicans or conservatives doing all the talking on it. There are a lot of outrage, not just Democrat, what would you call them, operatives or Democrat pundits. Also, a lot of outrage coming from former staffers feeling that they got sold a bill of goods. So we can talk about that as well. We've got a lot to cover this morning. I know I'm moving fast and picking some odd stories. Well, that continues. But I got a huge update on Mr. Bruce Blakeman, the Republican gubernatorial candidate. That's coming up in just a little bit. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Did you know we waste as much as 40% of all the food we produce globally? Did you also know that each year, millions of acres of wildlife habitat are plowed over, and billions of gallons of water is guzzled up to produce that food? And your wallet is taking a hit too. Americans toss out more than $382 billion worth of food per year. That's a lot of waste. But did you know that there are simple things you can do to help? And spread the word that food should never be trash. Visit us at wwf.earth/food waste.
Summer in New York State is the perfect time to get away. To turn moments into your favorite memories. To reconnect and soak up the sun. Or to unplug and unwind together. No matter what you do, it's going to be a summer to remember. You don't want to miss it. New York State, everything you love. Plan your summer escape at iloveny.com.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers, closing out the work week with a high of 77 and some sunshine, winds out of the west-northwest. Overnight, some shower potential out there. Worth noting that after tonight into Saturday morning, we don't have any other rain chances currently in the forecast. Saturday will top off a bit cooler, nearly 10 degrees below average, then gradually returning to some 70s Sunday and continuing into the start of next week. One thing that doesn't return
Our beautiful view of historic Market Street in the heart of the Gaffer District. We thank Boss Security in Horseheads for bringing that image to us. Contact Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from Mark, who says good morning, and good morning, Mark. I'm sorry I beat you to the punch about the Blue Origin. I did not see your comment before I brought that news story. But he continues, And Marco Rubio is set to meet with Pakistani leaders today over the war in Iran. And Pam Bondi is set to testify over the Epstein files today. Busy morning. You're right. Busy day, I should say. Okay, as noted, a New York appeals court has affirmed a lower court's decision to vacate State Public Campaign Finance Board's decision denying New York Republican gubernatorial candidate Bruce Blakeman millions of dollars of public campaign matching funds and a timeline for him to correct his registration within the board. Now, this is coming from Spectrum. That's kind of a long way of saying that Bruce Blakeman won the appeals, that they sided with him. The panel that oversees the program voted 4-3 on March 31st to disqualify Blakeman. I know we talked about this a lot on the program, but for those who aren't aware, Bruce Blakeman is running against Governor Hochul. Whatever you think about matching funds, I'm personally opposed to matching funds because that takes taxpayers' dollars and gives them to candidates where those taxpayers may not support that candidate in any way, shape, or form. And it's a 6-1 match. Well, they made it open for the gubernatorial candidates. But the original idea, and again, I don't accept their premise, but the original idea was it is supposed to help the quote-unquote little guy face the incumbent and beat the incumbent. So now you have the little guy, Bruce Blakeman, trying to face the big, bad incumbent in Governor Hochul. And because the board was made up or favored Democrats, they voted against allowing him to have the matching funds. What was the reasoning? Because he did not fill out a form listing his lieutenant governor candidate, Todd Hood. You say, well, okay, if he didn't follow the rules. The form did not, and still to this day does not exist, as last I've noted. So within the last couple of weeks, that form still did not exist. So again, this was clearly a partisan decision in hopes to, I guess they're scared, concerned about Blakeman, the Democrat Party that is, that he may have a chance against Hochul. So they denied him the funding. Blakeman sued the Public Campaign Finance Board, saying Hood was never notified that he was required to make a filing with the board, wasn't provided with any forms or guidance, and had not received notice that he was disqualified from the program. Blakeman, currently the Nassau County executive, and his allies have alleged the board's decision was also a partisan one. Clearly it is. So a state Supreme Court sided with Blakeman earlier this month, as you know, we reported on it at the time, and gave him a week to correct his registration with the board, which would allow him access to the public campaign finance program. The board appealed because the board is that scared of Blakeman. The board, again, made up of a majority of Democrats. The board appealed that decision. I thought they would walk away and say, we gave it a shot, but that's apparently not how Democrats in this state work. And they said, well, we're going to appeal it. So they appealed, and the appellate division of the Supreme Court affirmed the original decision. The board has the option to appeal to the state's highest court, and who knows? Unfortunately, I see a scenario where they probably do. They probably do appeal once again. It's that petty, again, going against everything. And I was never a fan of matching funds, but it went against everything supposedly the matching funds were supposed to stand for. So it goes to show that that was all kind of a slush fund or all kind of a way to support Democrat candidates and specifically incumbents. Now, in this scenario, Hochul did not take that money, and that seems a little suspicious to me. She did not go for matching funds. She's got something like $20 million, so it could be in her coffer, so it could be that. But also, I think it was because they knew this decision was going to come down. They would set up a trap for Blakeman, and she could look like she was taking the high road. That's my thought. Okay, also, speaking of something that I feel can be very misused, which is the matching funds, there's other, and we had a great email from Carol yesterday asking about this corruption, this fraud that now J.D. Vance is trying to get to the bottom of with his fraud group. 2 Minnesota fraudsters, this is out of Minnesota where the magnifying glass has been, allegedly swindled this is just 2 Minnesotans, more than $21 million in funding, which was earmarked, which was set aside using taxpayers' money to help those with autism. It was earmarked for autism services. They started 2 bogus companies, and they spent it lavishly on overseas properties. I'm going to try the names here. Shamoso Ahmed Hazan, 55, and Hanan Mursal Yusuf, 25, whose mugshots were released on Wednesday, made off like bandits by submitting millions of dollars in fake claims to Minnesota's Early Intensive Development and Behavioral Intervention Program between May 2020 and December of 2024. So you had 4 years of constant fraud. And to Carol's point, how is this not investigated? How are there not audits? But we have the same thing here with Medicare in New York State, where there seems to be, and a lot of our government programs, there doesn't seem to be audits. There seems to be no accountability. It's just throwing taxpayer money, saying that they're doing something, saying that they're helping, like in this case in Minnesota, helping with those with autism. So after 4 years, they were caught, but 2 Minnesota fraudsters swindling $21 million. The pair enrolled 2 companies co-owned by Hassan called Smart Therapy Center LLC and Star Autism Center LLC as service providers to submit the claims, and were secured $21.2 million in funds aimed at helping people under 21 with autism. The swindlers were part of an extensive scheme to use the stolen money on themselves and their families, including buying property in Kenya and a truck. Hassan and her employee, Yusuf, who live together and are both U.S. citizens, remain in federal custody pending court proceedings. Their arrests are part of a larger fraud scheme that totaled more than $46 million and include 2 other defendants who appear to be siblings. Both previously took plea deals tied to the involvement in the scams of the Star Autism and Smart Therapy. This is it's shocking. And specifically, Hanan Musal Yusuf smiling, grinning during her mugshot. The $300 to $1,500 monthly payments meant for autistic children, referred to by the code word computer, were disguised when the defendants wrote checks to employees and family members of the facilities that were then cashed and paid out to the parents as kickbacks each month. I'm not going to give you the whole scheme here, but by April of 2021, Smart Therapy claimed to have served 1,200 meals a day, 7 days a week, which Hassan knew was grossly inflated. I mean, I would hope the government would have saw that. That would have been a red flag, but apparently not, because that was in 2021. Listen to this. Between 2020 and 2021, she claimed the center served almost 200,000 meals to kids, for which she claimed $465,000. The list goes on from here. You get the idea. But Minnesota pair, $21 million in state funds meant for autism services. Okay. Oh, my goodness. We got a lot of updates. I know, we're moving fast already. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in. We've got New York State updates. We're going to hear, and I'm going to read the quotes. We're not going to hear audio, but from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, Senator Tom O'Mara, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, their thoughts on the budget. Also, just as an update, speaking of Joe, on Tuesday of next week, we are going to hear from Joe Sempolinski. He's going to be zooming in, if you will, from Albany. This is not going to be an in-studio interview, but we want to catch up with him on his thoughts on the budget specifically. So if you have any questions for Joe, it'll be kind of difficult to do it live due to the Zoom situation. So if you have any questions, get them to me ahead of time. On Wednesday in studio, we will have Sheriff Jim Allard. So any questions for the sheriff, get those to me as well. And then on Thursday, we're going to be talking to Sarita. She is the candidate for Attorney General, the Republican candidate for Attorney General facing Letitia James. I'm excited about that. That's on Thursday. She's going to be joining us. So if you have questions for Sarita Kamatoretti, please contact me, and that means we'll have the gubernatorial candidate, we've had the state comptroller candidate, and now we'll have the attorney general candidate on the Republican ticket. So we have almost everything covered, and I'm sure at any moment we will be talking with our lieutenant governor candidate. All right, there we are. We got to take a break. Stay with us. The Friday morning edition of Frankly Speaking returns after this.
William Matar has a reputation for being a good guy.
Because I am a good guy.
For being focused on motor vehicle accident cases.
Because I focus on motor vehicle accidents.
For fighting for his clients.
Because I fight for my clients.
If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, it matters who you hire. It matters in the experience as well as the results. Call William Matar. Visit WilliamMatar.com.
Give kids time. Ask them how they're feeling and listen.
We are the keepers of the wild, America's original and most invested conservationists. For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving wildlife and the natural landscapes that define our nation. From rugged alpine ridgelines to peaceful tall grass prairies, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. Our funding has led to cleaner water, fresher air, and improved wildlife habitat. From abundant fish and waterfowl populations to robust deer and elk herds, nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters, stewards of the American outdoors.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. As an update from yesterday's broadcast, the top federal prosecutor in Chicago has vehemently denied reports that a probe into longtime advice columnist E. Jean Carroll has been launched. The denial by U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, Andrew Boutros, came after multiple outlets claimed the Justice Department was investigating whether Carroll permitted perjury and testimony related to her 2 civil lawsuits against President Trump. Quote, in light of widespread reporting and intense media and public interest into the E. Jean Carroll matter in New York, the Chicago U.S. Attorney's Office can confirm that it has not opened and has never opened a criminal investigation into E. Jean Carroll, read a statement by Boutros. Any claim to the contrary is categorically false. Now, CNN reported that investigators were examining Carroll's claim during a 2022 deposition that neither of her lawsuits were funded by outside sources, though Reid Hoffman, the billionaire co-founder of LinkedIn and a Democrat mega-donor, was later revealed to have paid some legal fees and expenses through a Chicago-based nonprofit, American Future Republic. Carroll, now 82, was initially awarded $5 million in May of 2023 after Manhattan federal jury found the president liable for sexual abuse and defamation. You know the whole story here. The president has continued to deny even meeting Carroll and has appealed the initial $5 million sex abuse judgment to the Supreme Court while pledging to do the same with the $83.3 million award. So denied by the Chicago U.S. Attorney. Okay. Also, as an update, I don't understand why this happens. So, first of all, the America 250 event on the National Mall should be something we all celebrate. But because Trump is president, it is not being celebrated by the performers. We had a list yesterday of some of the alleged, I guess we should have said at the time, performers at the big event. Well, now I'm assuming because of backlash, I'm assuming because there is so much hate for anything surrounding Trump, many have backed out or denied ever being involved. Country singer Martina McBride said that she would not perform at the Great American State Fair in Washington. Quote, I was presented with an opportunity to perform at a nonpartisan event, but that turned out to be misleading. I asked lots of questions and was assured this was a nonpartisan event that was meant to celebrate all 50 states. What has made it, what made it not a celebration of America? That's confusing. Now, earlier Thursday, Young MC, Morris Day and the Time, the CNC Music Factory, and the Commodores each shared statements online announcing that they will not perform at the concert. A singer from Milli Vanilli told the Associated Press she was shocked to see the pop group's name listed as one of the fair's performers. Quote, I've informed my agents that I will not be performing at the Freedom 250 event, Young MC wrote. The artists were never told about any political involvement with the event. And despite the claims by the organizers that the event is nonpartisan, Spin magazine describes it as Trump-backed. I hope to perform in D.C. in the near future at an event that is not so politically charged. Trump started the whole America 250 celebrations. So is anything in Washington, is anything going to be considered Trump-backed? So Spin Magazine, which is very liberal, called it Trump-backed, and that gives Young MC enough, I guess, enough ammunition to back out. And again, and this is not after the fact just because they're denying their involvement. There was a lot, and we even kind of laughed about it yesterday. There was a lot of questionable stars, quote unquote, performing. But this is, so Spin just has to say Trump back. How would it not be a Trump backed event? If America 250, the celebration at the Great American State Fair, in what form, because it's in Washington, it's about America 250, how are they going to believe? How can they say it's not Trump backed, it's celebrating America's 250th anniversary? But I guess what I'm trying to get around to is because it's in Washington, because it's supporting and praising America, I guess they're going to consider it Trump backed. In a profane Instagram post, CNC Music Factory vocalist Freedom Williams said he also told his agent to pull him from the bash. He didn't mention Trump. I'm getting all these texts. We're going to cancel CNC Music Factory. This is going to be a terrible show. So I told my agent, yeah, I ain't good to do that. Blank. I don't blank with Trump. I don't give a blank about Trump. I know the type of blanking anarchy he creates, but the day I let you blankers tell me what to do is the day I die. Well, wouldn't that mean that you would stay in it? Boy, this is confusing. But this is what artists do. We have Bruce Springsteen taunting Trump. You got the President of the United States, as if he cares what Bruce Springsteen thinks. Bruce Springsteen charging a couple $1,000, depending on the ticket, but hundreds of dollars to go to his concert. He breaks in mid-concert to lecture you, and he told the audience the other night that there's going to be more of a ruckus, that he's going to cause more of a ruckus. And this they announced, I guess, I don't know if you'd call it retaliation of celebrating America. This is, by the way, what the artists that, I'm not saying you specifically, but maybe support, buy their albums. These are what they think. This is what they think of you. That anything celebrating America 250 is Trump-backed, and they don't want to be a part of it. Bruce Springsteen has joined with it's called Power to the People Festival in D.C. Now, that's not until October 3rd. But that's exactly a month before the midterm elections. That's going to have Bruce Springsteen, Rage Against the Machine guitarist Tom Morello, Foo Fighters, Dropkick Murphy, Dave Matthews, and more. So this is what these people think of you if you're a Trump supporter. Others saying, contrary to the rumors, Morris Day and The Time will not be performing at the Great American State Fair. It's a no for me. So right now it's down to rapper Flo Rida and Vanilla Ice. Those are the last two that haven't denied it from yesterday's reporting. But it should be noted, Freedom 250 is a nonpartisan 501c3 dedicated to uniting Americans around the nation's 250th anniversary. Freedom 250 is focused on our signature celebration and events that honor our history and engage all Americans. Welcome all who share our goal of commemorating this milestone in a way that uplifts and unites America. I guess what's sad about this, to me, is that it shows that there's kind of no overcoming this hatred of Trump. Because if you can't, who's going to perform at this point? They love to, their bark is bigger than their bite, right? They love to get out there and talk bad about Trump, but then they get a gig and their agent takes it, and then they have to backtrack because all these people are sending them hate. It's a very sad, and we talk about this hate. How bad has it gotten? How bad has the hate gotten for Trump, MAGA supporters, young Christian conservatives? Erica Kirk, life has been threatened. A terrifying Erica Kirk obsessive, he's 26 years old, is arrested after threatening to kill the Turning Point USA CEO by bombing an event. Now, remember, she had to cancel that event recently because there was real credible threats. Well, a sick would-be assassin has been arrested after making multiple threats to kill Erica Kirk and bomb a major Turning Point USA event, according to a warrant. The shocking alleged plot emerged just days before Kirk is due to appear at a TP USA Women's Leadership Summit in San Antonio, Texas. Jaco Wensky, 26, was arrested on Thursday after cops uncovered a series of online threats about a summit tied to him, that the messages were tied to him. "I know exactly where to bomb," he wrote. He also appeared to reference getting close to Kirk at the event. "I can't wait to be the valet for her escort," he wrote, per the warrant. "Death to Erica Kirk and every single speaker there," his email read. It also claimed there would be a bombing at every single Turning Point rally and event. Now, keep in mind, Turning Point USA is pushing freedom, Christianity, brotherhood, unity, and there is such an immense hatred for that. I've got another piece kind of tying in with all this, sadly, but I do think it's important to know what they think of Trump, what they think of you, what they think of Turning Point USA, whether it's the non-performers in America 250. They don't want to celebrate America's 250. You would think it would be an honor. I remember when I interviewed Sam Moore from Sam and Dave. He has since passed, but I interviewed him years ago on radio. And we talked about him performing at the inauguration of Trump's first term. And I was asked about backlash and things like that. And he just talked about the honor to perform at an inaugural event. Think about the honor of playing on the National Mall in celebration of America's 250. But instead, because of politics, because they're scared of kind of the far left attacking them, they have since canceled. Just something caught my attention this morning. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in, and we will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Oh, yep.
At Simmons Rockwell, you'll find brand new 2026 Chrysler Pacifica Select all-wheel drive passenger vans for only $43,999 during the Declaration of Deals event going on now at Simmons Rockwell Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Bath.
Join the Senior Services Fund for Bubbly and Brunch Sunday, July 26th at the Corning Museum of Glass in Corning at 11 a.m. Enjoy a wonderful brunch experience while supporting a cause that helps local seniors remain safe, independent, and comfortable in their own homes. Gather with friends, raise a glass, and make a meaningful difference. Bubbly and Brunch, July 26th at 11 a.m. For tickets and event details, visit SteubenSeniorServicesFund.org.
There have always been a few, ready to fight and win. Since 1775, these few have been Marines, and they come from across this land to defend the future of our nation. This year, our Corps celebrates 250 years, and Marines are proud to serve this country, each other, and all that is still to come for America.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers, closing out the work week with a high of 77 and some sunshine, winds out of the west-northwest. Overnight, some shower potential out there. Worth noting that after tonight into Saturday morning, we don't have any other rain chances currently in the forecast. Saturday will top off a bit cooler, nearly 10 degrees below average, then gradually returning to some 70s Sunday and continuing into the start of next week. One thing that doesn't return.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I've got to move away from this topic, but I had to mention this piece very quickly. It's by Victor Davis Hanson, and he says, since October 7th, 2023, we've been lectured nonstop about the supposedly singular sins of Israel. The campuses, the left-wing media, and Democrat socialist officials, following the cue of student activists and leftist professors, have painted Israel and its Jewish supporters as Nazis, fascists, and among the worst murderers in today's bloody world. And it's all nonsensical. The medieval-style massacre of 1,200 Jews in their homes on October 7th during a time of peace should have increased awareness of the existential dangers Israel faced. Instead, it spawned a storm of anti-Semitism. The libels of genocide and ethnic cleansing being cast at the Jewish state apply far more accurately to a host of other nations. And this has been the point I've been making on this program for quite some time, but I'll continue. Over the decades, we have sold arms and given billions of dollars in military aid to Turkey. Yet between 1915 and 1920, the Turkish government conducted a genocidal policy of ethnic cleansing against their Armenian population, for which it has never apologized and which it continues to deny. None of the current critics of Israel seem worried that Turkey invaded Cyprus in 1974 and ethnically cleansed northern Cyprus of its Greek inhabitants. There are no demonstrations anywhere in America on behalf of the far more recent Nakaba of the cryptic Greeks. Did Columbia University activist Muhammad Khalil ever rally his armies of idealists to go after the Islamic-driven ethnic cleansing of the ancient population of Christian Armenians, or to call for the United States to sever its joint arms deal with Turkey? And he goes through the whole history of it. You can find it for yourself in the New York Post. But he said, after October 7th, we were also lectured that Israel was not just guilty of various war crimes, but illegitimate in its very existence. Indeed, it's become chic to condemn Israel Jews as settler colonialists, despite residing in the 3,500-year homeland of the Jewish people, 3,500-year homeland of the Jewish people. New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani, an immigrant from Uganda with family roots in India, is one such critic. But under those very reductionist left-wing definitions, should not the Indian community in Uganda, which makes up at most a wealthy 1% of the population, be defined as settler colonialists, in addition to suspect rich 1%ers? The wealthiest man in Uganda is an Indian-Ugandan billionaire, and the minuscule Indian population there today exercise power and influence disproportionate to their numbers, in stark contrast to the impoverished indigenous population. The Mamdani family certainly is not representative in terms of money and status of the average Ugandan. So this, again, he goes on for quite a while here. But in short, the telltale sign of anti-Semitism is not necessarily opposition to Israel. It is instead an endless fixation on Israel's supposed quote-unquote crimes, when far greater documented horrors elsewhere never merit a word. And that's what we've been talking about with the Hollywood celebrities, the college protesters. Where are their support for the Iranian people? Okay, moving along here. Oh, I forgot a message from Ken. Sorry about that, Ken. Ken writes in, where do you think the fraud investigations and prosecutions would be if Kamala was the president? I would bet that it wouldn't have even been discussed and that the Democrats would still be lining their pockets with our money. 100% agree. We would not have ever heard about what happened in Minnesota. There would be no fraud investigations. I think it's hypocritical of the Democrats and the legacy media to complain about things like the Ballroom Project, where others are paying for it. But the administration is asking for $1 billion in upgrades to the White House's security system, while they forget that DOJ has saved between $180 billion and $222 billion. Granted, it didn't get to $1 trillion due to Musk's defection, probably due to the sheeple attacking his company. But almost $250 billion is nothing to sneeze at. Speaking of $250 billion, Ken, we'll be talking about the New York State budget here in just a little bit. But you're right, it's nothing to sneeze at. It is hypocritical. It absolutely is. So, speaking of hypocritical, as the media and, Joe Biden criticize President Trump, we learned that Jill Biden that whole time thought that her husband Joe had a stroke. And this is worth mentioning because Democrats are now enraged that she came out and said this to sell her book. Okay? Democrats are shaking their heads in disbelief at the timing of Jill Biden's memoir and her change in tone about Joe Biden's disastrous debate performance. According to the New York Post, the party would rather talk about the high cost of living and increased gas prices and Trump rather than relive the debate around Joe Biden's cognitive health. And we kind of heard from someone about that like that yesterday. They don't want to focus on something that Jill Biden put the focus on. We need this as much as we need a hole in the head, said Jim Manley, a Democrat strategist who worked in the Senate for years. Jill Biden's confessional about her concerns over the former president's health is dropping as the party fights to win control of Congress in November. But it'll have none, zero, zip impact on the election, Manley insisted. It's all about Trump, and his polling is in a free fall, but it's an unnecessary distraction. A Democrat who worked as a senior aide in the Biden era said, I think Jill Biden must have had a stroke herself to think that her husband was up to the job. Ooh. If she can sit back and listen to his constant drivel for over 4 years, she's the one with real cognitive decline. The fake doctor may want to consider self-medication if it took this long to gain some self-realization, the aide said. Well, and that raises a good point. That's the problem that I had with it. Not that she said that she thought he had a stroke and then continued to campaign with him directly after the debate. What bothered me, she said, I'd never seen anything like that from him before or never since. That's where the shocker was to me, that she would come out with that blatant lie. And they keep talking about the memoir, and that was what the ultimate goal was, is to sell the memoir, clearly. But this revisionist history stunned many Democrats because, remember, she said she wondered if he was dying, was having a stroke, and then again went out and rallied with him directly after, went to a Waffle House. One Biden administration alum said, why did we push out he had a cold if she thought he had a stroke? No one thought he had a stroke, said another former Biden White House official. That is in her head and her head only. This has been litigated and relitigated among staff. We didn't think he had a health issue because they kept on with the schedule. Immediately to the after party and then to the Waffle House. Who goes to the Waffle House after having a stroke? Former Barack Obama spokesman Tommy Vitter said apparently the goal of this book is to dispel accusations of a cover-up, but mostly it's just enraging to read that this was Jill Biden's reaction to the debate performance after the Biden family campaign and his supporters savaged people for articulating the same feeling. Yeah, when you said he obviously looked like he had a decline, if you would have said he looked as if he had a stroke, they attacked you. Now you know the rest of the history. We don't have to go through the rest of that history. But Democrat, I know I'm running late. Former Biden aides can't believe that Jill Biden would say this. Who was I'm missing the name here. Alex Thompson, one of the co-writers of the original Sin, that kind of cover up for the media, said, well, a lot of Democrats, including several Biden aides I've talked to since yesterday, when this interview came out, just simply don't believe her. And a lot of former Biden aides, have told me if you really believed he might have been having a stroke, that's not necessarily the same behavior that you would do. There's no evidence that there was any significant medical exam afterwards. And, a lot of Democrats think that this is simply unhelpful to come out at this moment and try to rewrite this portion of history. I have to say that there is a significant skepticism that she is trying to rewrite this narrative right now. That's ironic coming from the person who was trying to rewrite history about the media's role in what is one of the biggest presidential scandals in American history. They just feel, he continued, the inner circle, that they gaslit them. I've been surprised by the level of anger and frustration that I've heard from former Biden aides towards the former First Lady in the last 24 hours, with Biden officials saying that she's lying. All right, enough on that. We got more to talk about. Some more. Oh, but by the way, when we talk about Biden, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the former head of the DNC and current representative, she said that people appreciate that under Biden, we pass laws to make things more affordable. Did you realize that? Neither did I. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
Join the Men's Senior Services Fund for Bubbly and Brunch, Sunday, July 26th at the Corning Museum of Glass in Corning at 11 a.m. Enjoy a wonderful brunch experience while supporting a cause that helps local seniors remain safe, independent, and comfortable in their own homes. Gather with friends, raise a glass, and make a meaningful difference. Bubbly and Brunch, July 26th at 11 a.m. For tickets and event details, visit SteubenSeniorServicesFund.org.
Tide isn't just a gentle ebb and flow. It's a mighty force of change. Just like the tide shapes our shorelines, we can shape our planet's future and protect the world's oceans from its biggest threats. Help us turn the tide. Join Oceania's wave of ocean advocates who are making a difference in the world.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So there is a new poll from Emerson College. It shows that Secretary of State Marco Rubio has gained significant support compared to the previous poll and is now virtually tied with J.D. Vance at 35%. While the vice president maintains a 1-point lead with 36% of voters likely to support him as a Republican nominee, he appears to have lost more than 15 points in support after polling at 52% in February of this year. Backing for Democrat contenders waned overall, with no candidate receiving more than 20%. Now, it is a crowded field, with Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, and Kamala Harris. While nearly every Democrat saw a slight increase, Newsom and Harris, arguably the more nationally recognized figures, saw declines. The new poll found Newsom dropped 4 points from 20% in February, while Harris fell 3 points from 13%. Governors Josh Shapiro and Andy Beshear also saw slight increases, rising from 7 to 10% and from 5% to 9% respectively. Now, on the conservative side, other candidates, including Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Ted Cruz, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., all polled significantly behind Rubio and Vance at below 5%. Similar, on the liberal bloc, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Silicon Valley Representative Ro Khanna polled at or below 5%. Keep that in mind when J.B. Pritzker is out there constantly thinking that he is going to be the next president. Now, they focus this more on of course, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. But what's interesting, it's bad news for Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris. Pete Buttigieg, of all people, has risen and looks like, where I read, he is kind of the favorite at this point. Now, one person whose name has been thrown around in the past, two-term Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a high-profile Democrat who political pundits view as a possible 2028 presidential contender, says she doesn't plan to run for the White House in the next election cycle. Quote, "There will be a robust group of people running for president. I will not be one of them in 2028. I can tell you that." Interesting. All right. Enough on that. We got to take another break, and then we're going to wrap up hour number one. Stay with us.
You're watching Big Fox. WYDC TV, Elmira Corning.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital. I feel like a fish with no water.
You know how to react to their asthma attacks. Here's how to prevent them. Because even one attack is one too many.
You're watching Big Fox. WYDC TV, Elmira Corning.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Brandon Leathers, closing out the work week with a high of 77 and some sunshine. Winds out of the west-northwest. Overnight, some shower potential out there. Worth noting that after tonight into Saturday morning, we don't have any other rain chances currently in the forecast. Saturday will top off a bit cooler, nearly 10 degrees below average, then gradually returning to some 70s Sunday and continuing into the start of next week. One thing that doesn't return.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horses. Look at that beautiful view. It's a nice morning out there. Thank you to Boss. give them a call today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, getting ready to wrap up hour number one. We're going to talk about, well, we got some New York State issues. We just talked about the polls, but at the midterm polls, Lee Carter says, I study polling. Democrats are gambling on an anti-Trump vote and not ideas. Well, we know that it's not about ideas. It's just hoping that the anti-Trump sentiment is strong enough. And unfortunately, and this could be not a winning strategy, well, an unbeknownst winning strategy to them, the apathy, and we talked about it so extensively yesterday, of Republicans. The Republicans who said, I voted for Republicans to win the House, the Senate, and the White House. We got it. And then you've got people like John Thune who have said, well, the Save America Act, which has 80% support amongst Americans, we're good. We're busy. So the kind of that do-nothing Congress has been the attitude. I think it is creating a very concerning, that's what I want to use, kind of a path that we're heading on to November, where we are going to most likely be looking at a lot of Republicans sitting it out, Trump supporters sitting it out because they're frustrated with the way things have been headed. Now, yesterday we learned that the U.S. and Iran negotiators have reached a tentative agreement to extend the ceasefire and open nuke talks. I didn't start the program with this because this happened later in the afternoon. But U.S. and Iranian negotiators have reached a potential agreement to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and begin nuclear talks, according to the White House, though President Trump has not yet signed off on the plan. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, filling in for White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, stressed at Thursday's briefing that President Donald Trump will not take a bad deal on Iran. Shortly before Bessent took the podium, anonymously sourced reports began to surface that the U.S. officials in Iran had agreed to a deal on that ceasefire, the one that I just mentioned. When asked if there was agreement at the top of the briefing, Bessent said U.S. and Iranian negotiators have been going back and forth. President Trump has made it very clear, he talked about it at the cabinet meeting, that he has several red lines. Iran has to turn over their highly enriched uranium. They cannot pursue a nuclear weapon. And the Strait of Hormuz, back to your question on energy, has to free transit, navigation of the seas, and has to be free and open, as it was before. What did you think of Scott Bessent's? We got to wrap up hour number one. What did you think of his job? It's been interesting, very transparent, almost to a fault, this administration transparent, where Carolyn Leavitt, on maternity leave, and they say, you know what? We still want to hold these press briefings. We're not going to do her assistant press secretary. We're going to put people from the cabinet in there and have them do it. Rubio hit it out of the park. Scott Bessent got comfortable. I think a little bit awkward at first, not necessarily his wheelhouse, but I thought he did a good job and answered some really tough questions. So good job to Scott Bessent. All right, hour number one is in the books. As I mentioned, we're going to hear about the Twin Tiers Family Forum in the next hour, about their upcoming forum of lessons from Canada on assisted suicide, as the assisted suicide law here in New York State takes effect in August. We're going to talk about the New York State budget in the next hour. Don't forget Tuesday's broadcast next week, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. Wednesday, Sheriff Jim Allard. Thursday, our Attorney General candidate on the Republican ticket for New York State, Sharitha Kamatareddy. She's going to be joining us. We're excited to hear from her. But for all three guests, if you would get your questions in ahead of time, I would appreciate it. All right, stay with us. Hour number two, moments away.
Don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Watch news from the Twin Tiers and catch local events on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
I'm Grace. I'm Ida, and I lived in California. Timmy was just a puppy when I moved in. He's a emotional support animal. I had Missy, who was 15 years old and blind. Likes the people, he likes to greet all the people. All the employees are happy to see him. I feel that my pets are very welcome here. I feel very welcome here. I think it's great.
You deserve primary care that connects. Care that helps you move forward. Care that connects you to world-class specialists. Care that connects you to providers who are part of your community. And care that connects you to the life you love. Because great healthcare comes from providers who care about connection just like you. Find your primary care appointment at centralishealth.org/schedule.
Give kids time.
just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Your Big Fox, WYDC TV.
And we welcome you to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We've got a lot to cover with the New York State budget as we learn more. Unfortunately, that's a lack of transparency with New York State, where everything's done behind closed doors, the 3 Democrats in the room, hashing this all out. So we learn kind of in real time what we should have known from the jump. But 2, 3 quick things to get your opinion on about Iran, since we ended the last hour with that. Israel's ambassador to the United States told Katie Pavlik that Iran cannot be allowed to keep its centrifuges. The best case scenario would be that they actually open it up, meaning the Strait, as a result of any deal, and turn it over, and then turn over the nuclear by inspectors that would come in, experts that could come in and assess that all of it has been removed. But it's important to point out that they have 1,700 centrifuges that can produce nuclear weapons tomorrow, enriched material. I would say tomorrow. So those have to be dismantled, as well as at least completely taken out of the ability to be reconstituted. GOP Representative Pat Fallon was on Laura Ingram's program yesterday and said that the president has made it very clear that we have to have a great deal or no deal. And what a great deal would entail is we need all of that enriched uranium in the United States hands, or a trusted third-party hand. It cannot stay under Iranian control, period. End of story. Full stop. And then, of course, the Strait of Hormuz needs to be reopened, and Iran needs to commit to stop exporting terror and ballistic missile technology. We get that. We have a win, and we have peace. Anything short of that, we can't accept it. I'm sorry about the full stop thing. I know we've had those conversations in the past. Now, on the other side of the coin, on CNN's Out Front, Representative Seth Moulton said that the proposed agreement with Iran is, quote, a surrender document, and we appear to be, quote, negotiating America's unconditional surrender to Iran. But short of taking over Iran, there's literally no other option. So what we have here is a scenario, clearly, where it's, number one, wishful thinking, and we had that great conversation yesterday about one of Iran's greatest weapons is the media, the United States media, where so many are reporting on the propaganda coming from Iran, and we have those like Representative Moulton who want to see America lose this because that will hurt Trump. Just as a journalist from New York Times who said that he would rather see us lose in Iran than give Trump the political victory. So again, Moulton is calling for negotiating America's unconditional surrender to Iran. That's what he sees this as. He says it's because there's literally no other option. Unless he wants to take over the whole country, because they actually would achieve regime change, it would end their nuclear program, it would reopen the Strait. But they're talking about using 300,000 Americans for a country that's twice the size and population of Iraq. I don't think even Ranger Pete Hegseth wants that. So the only other option is to sit down at the table and actually have a negotiation. Let's just be honest, though he's not only lost the war, he's losing the negotiations as well. He said that Trump has a hope and a prayer that he might get some semblance of the nuclear deal that Obama handed to him. So now he's saying that Obama's deal is better, that we are unconditionally surrendering to Iran, and we've lost the war. There, as I mentioned in the past, people like Representative Moulton and many in the media are giddy over this. They believe this is a loss. I don't accept their premise. I want to make that very clear. That's a disclaimer. I don't agree with him at all. But there's this giddiness that he thinks that America is going to lose. On the 250th anniversary of America, he wants to see us lose to Iran, to surrender to Iran, because that would be a defeat for Trump. Because what's the most important thing in the world? Not American victories. The most important thing in the world is their midterm chances. Think of that when you talk about the lust for power. Something to keep in mind. Mark Levin, the Fox News host, said that viewers and listeners to him are overwhelmingly opposing this Iran deal and that they support the regime's destruction. This specifically to his radio audience. He said they have made it clear that they want the Iranian regime destroyed and no deal. Now, it's not a scientific poll, but his listeners are solidly conservative and pro-Trump. And the audience is very smart about the Iranian regime and the ramifications if it is not defeated. So your thoughts on that? Do you agree with Mr. Levin? I think most would like to see a regime change. I wouldn't disagree with that. Now, right now, Iranian officials are urging its long-suffering people to conserve water, fuel, and electricity. All executive bodies, organizations, and public institutions, both governmental and non-governmental, are required to install water-saving equipment and manage water consumption. Even Iranian President Mohammad Bezeshkian acknowledged the strain on resources, warning that the country couldn't easily export oil, collect taxes, or ignore the problems facing businesses. The country's oil minister also urged citizens during the war to conserve fuel after U.S. and Israeli attacks decimated part of Tehran's fuel supply network. All right. There you are. There's your updates on Iran to just wrap up that topic in that conversation. We've got to talk about the New York State budget. As I said, we have our guest from Twin Tiers Family Forum coming up very shortly. If you did not hear us in the 6 o'clock hour, this is great news. A New York appeals court has sided with gubernatorial candidate Bruce Blakeman and his campaign, and that means that the campaign will get the public matching funds. Now, the Public Campaign Finance Board can appeal this one more time if that's their want. I find that I didn't think they'd appeal it the first time because it clearly showed how partisan the group was. It was 4 Democrats to 3, and that's exactly how the 3 Republicans, of course, that's how the vote went. So they said, again, not to keep belaboring this, but the matching funds was set up, totally opposed to it myself, but it was set up for the money you raise for taxpayers to help fund your campaign. So if you can't stand a candidate, too bad if they accepted matching fund, you are giving them your taxpayer dollars, whether or not you know it. But in this scenario, what they had said about matching funds was the little guy could take on the big bad incumbent. Well, when the little guy, Bruce Blakeman, could take on the big bad incumbent, and Governor Hochul, the Democrats on the board decided that they didn't want him to have the matching funds. What were their excuses? And I'm sorry if you already heard this in the last hour. What was their excuse? Their excuse was that he did not fill out a form in regards to his lieutenant governor candidate, Todd Hood. You say, well, Well, that form did not exist, and currently, as of the last report I heard, does not exist. So what they have decided at this appeals court is that he has to have guidance and can have a certain time period to fill out that form to receive the money. A state Supreme Court had already sided with Blakeman earlier this month, but that board decided to appeal. The board has the option to appeal again, this time to the state's highest court, the New York Court of Appeals. Now, keep in mind, Governor Hochul has $20 million cash on hand and his millions, I think something like 10 times what Blakeman has. Blakeman, at least early on, had a couple million. So this should help him in the tune of around $7 million, I think I originally heard. It doesn't say specifically in this piece, but it is a victory, even if it's a small victory for Bruce Blakeman, and not really even that small. It's a major victory to kind of weed out this partisan corruption, which is exactly what the Public Campaign Finance Board showed themselves to be, just purely partisan and not about what they stated was the original goals of matching funds. Now, New York's long-delayed $269 billion budget has finally passed the legislature. It's the largest budget in New York State history and one of the latest. Again, I want to repeat that number, $269 billion budget. The spending plan passed late Wednesday. It adds that second home tax in New York City, rolls back costly state climate mandates, and the New York Times presented that when it was, what are the changes? What can we expect in New York? Well, New York shirks its climate leader status. Because keep in mind, Governor Hochul, I think might have even been the number one climate leader in maybe last year, in a list of the biggest climate activists. New York is not on track to achieve the goals laid out in its ambitious 2019 Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. The budget offers two means of addressing that. One way is a fresh $1 billion allocation to develop renewables. The other, insisted upon by Ms. Hochul, rewrites the fine print to make the goals easier to reach. Because some of the climate goals may drive up consumer costs, the governor may be betting that voters may be more concerned by their own finances than fossil fuels come November. You think? Maybe? Do you think maybe voters are concerned? They are going to help you out, though. I think you're going to receive a $200 rebate check to help with utilities. We'll talk about that in a moment. But many lawmakers and environmentalists say the weakening climate goals backtracks on Democrat promises and runs counter to environmental justice imperatives. Ooh, that's not good. Could be losing some of her own base. Assemblywoman Jessica Gonzalez-Rojas, a Democrat, spoke for many when she voted in favor of the budget while castigating the changes to the climate law, saying, I quote, do not support weakening our commitment to confronting the climate crisis, describing the choice between affordability and climate justice as a false choice. Republicans said the legislature should have done more to weaken the law, which they said leaves a major burden on industry and consumers. And that is coming from the far-left New York Times. So that, of course, was biased in its writing, a pro-climate activism, as you see. Hochul said, sausage making is never fun to watch in the process, but if you like sausage, the outcome is good. Wow, a lot of cliches there from Governor Hochul on the budget process. Now, keep in mind, the deadline was April 1st. We know that. It was, 2 weeks ago that Hochul declared that the budget was done. It was all over but the shouting. Of course, that was not the case. And here we are yesterday, 27th, late 27th, early 28th. They passed the budget. Now, we also see that Democratic-controlled legislature ultimately approved the sprawling 2026-2027 budget that included that second House tax, fulfilling Mayor Zohran Mamdani and his fellow Democrat Socialists of America members, calling for her to tax the rich. Again, this budget done in so many ways to, of course, make sure that she gets reelected in November. That's her ultimate goal. We got to take a break. We're going to talk more about that for just a little bit. Then we're going to hear from our guest and then return to that topic at hand when it comes to the New York State budget. Your thoughts on it, your thoughts on all the issues of the day. Some of those comments when we return. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking.
You want Jeeps?
We got
them. You want Chryslers?
We got them.
You want Ram trucks?
We got them.
Huge selection, big savings, and 3 convenient locations working together to get you the vehicle you want. Shop hundreds of new and pre-owned vehicles from the brands you trust. Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram. Mansfield, State College, Lewisburg. 3 stores, 1 mission, to save you more. Only at the Blaze Alexander, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram stores. Lowest price guaranteed.
When you think swimming pools, think Hesselson's. Hesselson's offers expert advice, professional service, and a complete line of chemicals and accessories. Replacement liners, motors and pumps, automatic vacuums, skimmers, ladders, steps, and more. Hesselson's has it all. Do you have a chemical question? Come in for Hesselson's free computerized water analysis and the widest selection of chlorine and specialty chemicals. With Hesselson's help, you can clean up any pool problem and swim in sparkling clean water. Let Hesselson's show you how easy it can be to take care of your swimming pool. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Summer in New York State is the perfect time to get away. To turn moments into your favorite memories. To reconnect and soak up the sun. Or to unplug and unwind together. No matter what you do, it's going to be a summer to remember. You don't want to miss it. New York State, everything you love. Plan your summer escape at iloveny.com.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Leathers, closing out the work week with a high of 77 and some sunshine, winds out of the west-northwest. Overnight, some shower potential out there. Worth noting that after tonight into Saturday morning, we don't have any other rain chances currently in the forecast. Saturday will top off a bit cooler, nearly 10 degrees below average, then gradually returning to some 70s Sunday and continuing into the start of next week. One thing that doesn't return.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horslets. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning to you. I was watching the White House briefing on Iran yesterday, and I have to say Scott Bessent is doing a great job. In my opinion, I find him dry but humorous and so intelligent, and he can calmly and subtly put them in their place when deserved, and I love watching it. I've got to agree with you. To me, it's really, I think this is such a unique idea. I don't think we'll see other presidents do this. We would have never seen this from Biden and Obama, in my opinion. But this idea that, okay, Carolyn Levitt is on maternity leave. Let's put in some members of the cabinet to run a press conference or a briefing. Those are not easy, as you see, even with Carolyn Levitt. That's why she's so impressive in the way that she handles them. Because that is I would think well, look how bad Biden's press secretary handled it with the binder. It's not an easy job. So to put them in there, it's got to be out of their comfort zone a little bit, even though, like you said, cool, calm, and collected, did a great job. Marco Rubio, his star rose again because of the great job that he did. So, yes, I just thought I wanted to mention it because I thought it was a good job. All right. Comment from a different viewer. Morning, Frank. Given the hatred of our president, I have to wonder if the Democrats are attempting to sabotage the outcome of the Iran conflict or otherwise in bed with the Iranians. I think, well, to that point that was made yesterday, the media is pushing, not all media, of course, but some media is pushing the propaganda that Iran puts out. And the piece was great. You can find it in the New York Post, where essentially they were saying the most powerful weapon that Iran has is the U.S. media, certain members of the U.S. media. I don't know how they could sabotage it, but I do think you can tell by the inflection in their voice and the way they talk about Iran and taking the propaganda from their outlets that they go to, the Iranian propaganda, and saying, look, we're losing. And you can tell there's a giddiness to it. There's a happiness to it, that they're excited. And again, to your point, you recall the New York Times columnist who said that they would rather see Iran win than give President Trump a political win. So yes, the excitement in their voice, the people that the media are interviewing, I think at the end of the day, it's wishful thinking. They want to see a loss, especially before the midterms, which is very sad to me. And I think it shows the state of affairs that we are in and the lust for power by the left, that they are willing and actually, it seems in some ways, celebrating what they hope to be a loss as compared to giving Trump a win. It's sad, but it's like we're going back to what we were talking about with these artists performing, that they don't want to celebrate America 250. So they all cancel out because of Trump. It's a sad state of affairs where we're at in this country, and we won't have a chance to get to it, but there's a piece also at the New York Times, and it's by Douglas Murray, who we quote quite often, saying, rediscover American pride and gratitude on the 250th anniversary. Well, hopefully some of these performers kind of take a moment, step back, and think not everything is about the hatred of Trump. A comment from different viewer, because we're talking about Bruce Springsteen and him charging thousands of dollars for a ticket and then breaking mid-set to lecture you about the big bad rich, then lecture you about how bad Trump is. He said they're going to cause a ruckus before the election. October 3rd, he's joining members of Dropkick Murphys, Rage Against the Machine, Foo Fighters. Who else was there? There's quite a laundry list in this kind of, I would call it like an anti-American 250 rally, but they're calling it Power to the People rally in Washington, D.C., or concert. And so we're talking about Bruce Springsteen, kind of the hypocrisy there. This viewer writes in, Bruce Springsteen is the boss, and we've all had a boss like him. That's funny. You know, the one that you don't like? Yeah, that one. Yeah, I don't like Bruce Springsteen either. And he is a boss in the sense that he gets up there and he's lecturing and telling all these people what to do. It is really interesting that people still support. I mean, again, you may love his music, and if that's the case, I get it. But how do you justify spending thousands of dollars for a ticket and then have to sit through a lecture or sit through songs? I'm sure you want to hear some of your favorites, right? That's why we all go to concerts. Then to have him lecture you, or then have him play a new song that's not very good but is political. I don't know. I don't get it either, but I appreciate the statement. All right, New York's, again, budget passing. Governor Hochul taking that victory lap, even though she took the victory lap a month or so before. Not a month ago. It was maybe about a month ago now, I guess. Mamdani had a big win. It's been very, discouraging, to say the least. There are some small things in there that you could take away, like the few changes to the climate policy. It doesn't go far enough, but it does at least make some difference. We're going to hear, after our interview, we're going to hear from State Senator Tom O'Mara. We're going to hear from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. We're going to hear from Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, what their takes on the New York State budget are. Also, we will be speaking with Joe on Tuesday. Joe Sempolinski will be our guest. He'll be calling in. And we don't normally like to do Zoom live. We love, especially with Joe, we love to have him in the studio. But because of what's going on with the budget, what's going on in Albany right before session ends, we're going to hear from him live over Zoom from Albany. And then on Tuesday, live in studio, Sheriff Jim Allard. And then then that was Wednesday. And then Thursday, Saritha Kamarotreddy running for Attorney General on the Republican ticket. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in. Coming up next, we're going to hear about the Forum Lessons for Canada on Assisted Suicide from the Twin Tiers Family Forum. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking, and we'll be right back.
Give kids time. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Spring and things at the Declaration of Deals this May at Chilson Wilcox. Drive home a Ram 1500 and save over $6,400. Plus, get 2.9% for 72 months or 4.9% for 84. And it comes with the best powertrain warranty in the business. 10 years, 100,000 miles. Or save over $6,000 on a new Jeep Grand Cherokee. Just announced, go topless in a 2026 Jeep Wrangler. And as always, get the highest trade-in values, period. These deals won't last. Chilson Wilcox, selling cars a different way, the right way.
Small businesses are the heart of America. Like you, these entrepreneurs started out with a dream and the drive to build a better life. If you have a small business idea to grow or challenge to face, you don't have to go it alone. Since 1964, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses. Today, they are the nation's largest nonprofit source of expert mentoring, resources, and education. Whether you're starting out, building back, or have worked at it for years, SCORE will match you with specialized mentors. Our thousands of volunteers provide the guidance and connections you need for free. Your success is waiting. SCORE is ready to help. Find a mentor today at SCORE.org.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horse House. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio, Gabe Rossetti. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Frank.
This is a heavy topic, but it's one that's very important. We've brought it up on the program a lot, and you put together with the Twin Tiers Family Forum an event, a forum, if you will. Before it starts here, Lessons from Canada on Assisted Suicide. It's coming up on June 9th, 6:30 p.m. at the American Legion, South Corning. Why did you, let's put it this way. What is the goal of this event?
Sure. So as you know, the New York State Legislature enacted a new law that's coming into effect in August that is going to allow people to request that their doctors give them medication to kill themselves, essentially. Yeah. And this is a new thing in New York. It's not new where I have a lot of friends in Canada. I went to university there. They've had it for 10 years or thereabouts. Yeah. And it's not good. The fallout from it culturally and at the individual level has been really terrible to watch and to witness. And I thought that it was important for people here who may, like me, be, I would say, interested in being prepared for this to start touching their family and their friends and their local community, to have an opportunity to sit down and hear from people who have kind of lived with this and understood what it does and where it goes.
And that's the kind of the important part, isn't it? The slippery slope, right? So what maybe starts off, and as you said, kind of alluded to, this was kept so quiet. when it went through.
Yeah.
And then here we are, it's coming up like everything in Albany. Oh, it's not till next August, don't worry about it. And then
Yeah.
August is here.
Sure.
But as someone that checks out the New York Post and some other outlets, to see what's happened in Canada and how extreme this has gotten, which what might have been quote unquote good intentions at first, has really gotten out of hand.
There's always compassion at a human level that underlies all of the discussions around this stuff. Nobody wants to see their family members suffer.
Of course not.
People want to do what they can to help. People want to, it's very normal, they want to have as much autonomy over their own care and their own decisions as they can. These are all good things, they're all normal. Where the problem is that when you have a bright line that we all used to understand that no matter what life brings,
right,
your life is something that's really, it's whether you believe it for religious reasons or otherwise, it's a miracle, it's sacred, and it kind of doesn't belong to you. It's something that you've been given and are a steward of.
Right.
And it's certainly not something that you can end voluntarily because you don't want to do whatever it is that the next thing is in your life. And there can be terrible things that you may have to do that may be very difficult.
Right.
Right. And one of those is suffering through illness at the end of life. It used to be that until very recently that suicide was always understood in all contexts to be a terrible, terrible thing. And in other parts of the world and now in New York, we've decided that that is no longer an absolute thing, right? And the law now carves this terminal illness situation out as one where not only is it not a tragedy, but it's something that people may start to feel compelled to consider based on circumstances that may arise in their families, may arise economically. That's been one of the experiences. And Dr. McQueen, our guest, or our speaker at this event, she's the recently retired director of the Catholic, Canadian Catholic Bioethics Institute. I hope I have that right. Yes. Professor of moral theology at University of St. Michael's College, my alma mater at University of Toronto. She's also a lawyer. She's originally from Scotland. She has a wonderful accent. If nothing else, come to the event and enjoy that.
Sure.
The idea is she has witnessed where this has gone for people in Canada, and one of the main lines of objection that have started a decade later, started to flower out north of the border, is, wait a minute, we instantiated this in order to be compassionate to people, right? As misguided as I think that was at the beginning. And now people they're taking polls of people of, why are you doing this? What's impelling you to do it? And significant numbers of people are saying, I'm doing this because I'm poor. Because I don't have any prospects in life. And there's originally it was terminal illness only. Now there are 2 tracks. Okay, this is in Canada, and this is what you can bet will be the case in any place where the bright line is erased, which we've just done in New York. So track 1 is the standard, I'm terminally ill, I can't bear the pain anymore, and we all, I'm sure, would face that temptation in that situation to take that step if it were available to us. You can understand it at a human level, and then you have this unbelievable metastasis of this practice into other areas of just mental illness, economic distress, profound loneliness. And these are the reasons, not wanting to be a burden.
Right. There was the one person, and I don't know her name, but she was an actress, a somewhat successful actress, who said she has an embarrassment of riches. She's been blessed her whole life, but she's felt depressed. That shouldn't be the line, to your point. That shouldn't be, and again, this is about having the conversation. Some people are going to disagree. Some others are going to say that is compassion for someone dealing with depression. But where it's not there yet in New York, but look how quickly it happened in Canada.
Yeah, and you have to understand how human institutions work, right? Everything is tethered to incentives at some level.
Sure.
And in Canada, you have a centralized healthcare system. Healthcare, as we know, is extraordinarily expensive. And someone who is in a hospital bed or in a profound terminally ill situation becomes very easy for society and for the medical establishment, whose funded by society at large, by the
Right.
taxpayer, to look at that person and say, you know what? You're kind of a problem.
Yeah. Under the guise of medical care.
Yes. And
That's what makes it so confusing.
so people are, even people who are not in acute distress or at the end of their lives, are presented, as I understand it, with the quote-unquote option to terminate their own lives, no matter what their family situation is, in the event of illnesses that should be met with treatment, should be met with the support of family and community. And the corruption doesn't end with, with doctors and nurses presenting this to people as though it's something that should be done because of economic considerations. It can be family members as well, as you might imagine, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we no longer have to wait for mom to exit on her own time.
Right.
We can, and this is a horrible thing to think of.
I totally agree.
But people do pressure one another to do things that are legal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where nobody has to go to jail for telling mom you need to drink the poison. Well, there are going to be people who do that for reasons, there is no good reason in my view, but for reasons that we would view to be abominable. And that will happen in this community.
And you said this kicks off in August. Like this starts in New York in August.
There are some regulations that need to be published by the Department of Health, I think, relating to record keeping, disposal of unused medication if somebody changes their mind, and so forth.
Okay.
And let's be clear about what we're talking about. Disposal of unused medication. What we're talking about is a cup of apple juice with poison in it, okay? That the person will drink in the company of attending physician and or nurses and family members. There's something about reflecting on the reality of that action being taken by someone that I think people should be confronted with, and that's the, and stop me if you have other questions, but that leads me to look at a very interesting part of the law. I have a copy of the law itself here. One of the duties of the attending physician when someone has requested the medication, and I'll read it so I'm not mischaracterizing it, is to ensure, I've got it flagged up here, to ensure that they discuss with the patient the importance of, among other things, not taking the medication in a public place.
Oh my gosh.
I think that's a very revealing element of this law, because where was the public outcry for this?
Yeah.
Where was, nobody wanted this, as far as there were activist groups who wanted it.
Sure.
And that's, those groups have an outsized influence on what happens in Albany. And here we are, and we now all have to confront this and what it means for us. And I don't think anybody in Corning, New York, that I'm aware of,
Who's ready for this?
was wanting it. And in the law itself, you have a recognition that this is something that we're kind of ashamed of.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
it felt that when the conversation first happened,
Yeah.
that there was this kind of back and forth where no one really wants to sign off on it. Who
Yeah.
wants their name attached to it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just read an article where they canceled, because to your point about drinking in public or disposing of the medicine, they canceled an actual execution of a prisoner because they couldn't find his vein.
Yeah.
But here we're in a scenario where they're giving you a medicine under the guise of, again, medical care that you now have to dispose of if you change your mind.
That leads into the question of medical ethics and people who became doctors and nurses before this. How are their employers going to handle their conscientious objection to this, which the law does protect, and that's very important for people to know.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people in our community are going to be professionally impacted by this. The law states that a physician, nurse, pharmacist, or other provider shall not be under any duty, law, or contract to participate in the provision of medication to a patient under this article. Okay?
Yeah.
Nobody can be forced to do this. And that goes for facilities as well. People who are in leadership of hospitals, hospice care facilities need to understand that there are procedural requirements in the law for doing so, but you can opt out for your entire facility from having people drinking poison to kill themselves in your facility, and having your staff, in some way pressured or obligated to assist in that. Right.
We're talking about, before it starts here, Lessons from Canada on Assisted Suicide. It's coming up on June 9th at 6:30 p.m. at the American Legion in South Corning. Would you recommend that people RSVP for this?
Definitely. There's twintiersfamilyforum.org is the website. You can find the event on that, and please help us get a head count. We'd like to know how many people are going to be there so that we
Goes without saying, it's free.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's free. This is born of concern for the community and, and the people we know and love here being ready for this.
Who do you think this is specifically kind of catered for? If someone's saying, should I go to this or shouldn't I go to this, who do you think should attend the event?
Sure. Anyone who's interested in the moral implications of the societal changes that we're going to see on the heels of this law, whether they feel that they're going to be implicated or not, I can promise you that it's going to touch you in ways that you don't expect. And I know this from my friend's experience. Doctors, nurses, hospice workers, pharmacists, they'll be on the front lines of this. They should be there. The Catholic Church, this is from a Christian perspective. Catholic Church has run hospitals for a long time, and that's why they're at the vanguard of the development of bioethics. And our speaker, Dr. Moira McQueen, she's an internationally renowned bioethicist. She's Catholic, but the principles that she'll be expounding on and what she's devoted her life's work to are really something that, broadly speaking, all Christians and really all people in the Judeo-Christian tradition or ancillary to it, which we all are in certain ways, should be able to at least understand and be interested to explore. So the facing this at a cultural level, dealing with what do we do when a family member is looking to go in this direction, what do we do in order to safeguard our conscience rights as professionals, how are we going to I'm not a politician. I'm not interested in the political advocacy that might other people might take up. Someday this might be repealed, but for now this is the law of the land in my home state of New York, and I'm more interested in helping people think through before this is on their doorstep. How they're going to live this in their own lives as family members, as professionals. And as people who are going to get sick and get old. Right?
It would be interesting to see, and I don't know if the doctor has an answer, or if anybody really has an answer, to ensure when this takes effect, how it doesn't grow and expand like Canada. Because we're just talking about the initial phase. What people think about that, good or bad. If you study what happened in Canada, it doesn't stop where we're starting in August.
It definitely does not, and the advocacy for advocates for people with disabilities have been at the vanguard of opposition to this in Canada. More recently than not, because they've woken up to the fact that, oh my goodness, the people whose interests we represent, people whose lives are just as sacred and valuable as anybody else's, but who have disabilities, they're being regarded with a gimlet eye more than they ever used to be, because if you look at people as economic actors only, people with disabilities can be less productive economically and can cost more to when the disabilities are acute for their care over the course of a lifetime. Well, when we're talking about people as their intrinsic dignity is not recognized and only their productivity is, well, those people are in the firing line.
I know that I've seen a lot of different groups outspoken and saying that it's wrong because of, again, where this can lead to, and a financial situation where it is that person is maybe pressured by someone to take it. It's tragic. It's tragic. Before it starts here, Lessons from Canada on Assisted Suicide, again, June 9th at 6:30 p.m. at American Legion, South Corning. Before we go, is there anything anybody needs to know? What should they just come and bring an open mind?
Come and bring an open mind. It's definitely going to be a presentation with a firm perspective. And when in time when your own family members or yourself have to confront these questions practically, understand we're in a golden age of palliative care. And that is being wiped away in Canada right now. funding for palliative care is being eroded because this is the alternative. People are being pushed in the direction of ending their lives rather than medical treatment as it's always been understood. To suffer is a normal human thing, but we don't have to suffer the way our ancestors did.
Right.
Compassion is a wonderful thing, but it needs to be directed. And we hope that you come to our event on June 9th and explore what that means as New Yorkers under this new law. And we hope to see everyone there.
Yeah, and find out more at twintiersfamilyforum.org, but also about Twin Tiers Family Forum. You can find out about your organization there. Gabe, thanks for giving us so much time this morning.
Thank you, Frank.
All right, good luck with your event.
Thank you.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
My brother, William Matar, is known for being a good guy. Sweet, caring, a rock. But don't let his calm exterior fool you, because deep within him is a killer instinct. Okay, it's deep within him. Really, really deep. But it's in there, and he uses it to take on big insurance and win. So if you're hurt in a car, call William Matar, my sweet, killer instinct brother. 444-4444.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is the start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family owned and operated in Amara Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Youth Clubs provides professional and technical assistance to all our affiliate clubs all around the world. We already have 44 countries that are behind us providing safe spaces for kids, but there are 160 other countries we'd like to reach out to. Yeah. Right, Rod? Exactly. We need you to help fund the World Youth Clubs and make their dream come true.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Leathers, closing out the work week with a high of 77 and some sunshine. Winds out of the west-northwest. Overnight, some shower potential out there. Worth noting that after tonight into Saturday morning, we don't have any other rain chances currently in the forecast. Saturday will top off a bit cooler, nearly 10 degrees below average, then gradually returning to some 70s Sunday and continuing into the start of next week. One thing that doesn't return is
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I want to thank Gabe Rossetti for being on the program this morning. We have a few comments to get to, then we're going to get back to the New York State budget. All right. First up, this viewer says, I appreciate hearing from Gabe Rossetti this morning. This is really disturbing to me, and I guess I'd forgotten how close we are to this reality. There are too many young people today who are just watchers, if you know what I mean, and if your parent has a simple cough, they would all be too eager to pull the plug. Yeah, the family unit used to bond together and care about each other through thick and thin, and we've lost this, and it's really disheartening to me. Thank you, Gabe. Oh, and to your point, that's what I think is interesting. I kind of made the point quickly, but I wanted to hear more from Gabe, is that in New York State, it's just like when we talked about the EV mandates or the all-electric housing mandates. They pass something, and it's, takes a while to implement, and you totally forget about it. And then when he tells me it begins in August, it's kind of shocking. And I know it was a major topic when it first came out, but then it kind of dies down as you wait for the implementation that starts in August. And I do think there's going to be some very horrible repercussions. We had a story yesterday in Canada where a person was diagnosed by a doctor outside of a Tim Hortons that he had Crohn's disease and was depressed, and that was enough to have him euthanized. It's a scary, slippery slope. All right, coming from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. What about insurance policies that don't count in suicide cases? That's a great question. You could ask that if you attend the forum. I'd be curious, too, to know that, because because it's government approved, does that change it? Is it considered officially on paper suicide? Fantastic question. All right, comment from a different viewer. Ken writes in, Frank, I'm beside myself with wonderment on how the sheeple can keep their head buried so deeply where the sun doesn't shine, that they can't see what the Democrats and legacy media only care about themselves and the money that they can drag out of the American people. To them, the sheeple are simply useful buffoons that they know they can propagandize into doing their bidding. A child can see that no matter what Trump and the Republicans do, the Democrats and legacy media will twist themselves into pretzels to spin it in a bad light. How could any thinking person believe that after we have all but eliminated Iran's military capabilities and most of their leadership, we would ever be in a position to surrender? I totally agree with that. And one of the things that we've talked about in the past, just the initial phase of this, taking out 40-plus leaders, was nearly unprecedented. I mean, it was amazing. But again, it goes back to that piece we talked about yesterday, where many in the legacy media, the mainstream media, are more than happy to push the propaganda that Iran is putting out there and not talk about, and President Trump has called this out, and not talk about the major victories of the military, the major victories of this administration. On the other side of the coin, Rick writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Rick. Will Trump approve the tentative deal with Iran? Only advice I can give Donald is that they are Iran. They can't be trusted, just like you. And by the way, why is it just up to Trump to approve or not approve of the agreement? Doesn't the House have a say? Oh, I forget they weren't allowed to approve the war. I will say, if that first decision, we would have never had those 40-plus leaders of Iran taken out, because as you can see just by the media's coverage, or Representative Moulton or others that are giddy or celebrating what they see, which I don't agree, is a quote-unquote surrender or a loss. What would those same people do given that information ahead of time? Continuing with what Rick said, hey, if the Strait opens back up, aren't we back to where things were before the war started? Why, by golly, it is. Punish the world because they didn't follow Article 1 War Powers Act protocol. No plan, no win. You lose again, Trump, and your stupidity has cost us all. This is getting something, Rick. Trump is putting his likeness on coins and passports. Isn't that special? Unless they're giving them away, it's down to, do we eat, buy gasoline, or a Trump coin? Sorry, Donald, you'll lose. Hey, by the way, is that picture of you on the $250 bill one of your mugshot pictures? Any chance we can get Trump and Hillary to roll at the White House UFC event? I got to put my money on Hillary. Have I gotten more and more sarcastic as the week has flown by? If you want to call it that, Rick, sure. Well, all you have a great weekend and keep your fearless leader in your every thought. I would argue that it's probably not Trump supporters that Trump's in their every thought. I would suggest it's non-Trump supporters. So hence that lengthy message. Okay, we were talking about the New York State budget, but we got to take a break. We will return to that when we return, hearing from Senator Tom O'Mara, hearing from Phil Palmisano, hearing from Joe Sompolinski, all that much more. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Nearly 5 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and horseheads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
Change the first 5 years, and you change everything. Start early and you nurture the relationships that lead to a lifetime of healthy development and well-being. Start early and you ensure every child is ready for kindergarten. Start early and you give every child, family, and community in our country the opportunity to thrive.
Don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tubs and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
National was born from a simple idea. Instead of giving hungry people a cup of milk, why not give them a cow? 80 years later, this idea has helped more than 46 million families around the world. With the right tools and practices, people can produce their own food, earn better income, and build a brighter future for themselves and our planet. It's not a handout, it's a path out of poverty, with a chance for an education, better nutrition, and an opportunity to thrive. Learn more at heifer.org.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers, closing out the work week with a high of 77 and some sunshine, winds out of the west-northwest. Overnight, some shower potential out there. Worth noting that after tonight into Saturday morning, we don't have any other rain chances currently in the forecast. Saturday will top off a bit cooler, nearly 10 degrees below average, then gradually returning to some 70s Sunday and continuing into the start of next week. One thing that doesn't return is
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on the New York State budget. Senator Tom O'Mara noted that Governor Hochul and the legislature's majorities are increasing spending by at least $14 billion over last year and will adopt a $268 billion plus fiscal plan. He said that the new budget will result in state spending under all Democrat control since 2018, increasing by 55% or nearly $100 billion. He said New York State taxpayers today and long in the future already face trying to afford, live, and work under a bloated, wasteful, and unaffordable state government. New York is already one of the highest taxed, heavily mandated, overregulated, and least affordable states in America. This budget makes it worse and increases spending by at least $14 billion, but fails to include a shred of meaningful tax relief, mandate relief, debt relief, or spending restraint. It fails to address key priorities in energy policy, healthcare, public safety, and so many other fundamentally important areas. It ignores the economic and fiscal warnings on the horizon and keeps on increasing government spending like there's nothing to worry about. The budget acts like New York State taxpayers and families shouldn't have a care in the world in the face of the worst affordability crisis it has ever faced. It is a budget bill on bailouts and giveaways to special interests and favored constituencies that everyday taxpayers will never be able to afford. Now, he goes on, but I want to make sure that we get to Assemblyman Phil Palmisano and Joe Sempolinski as well, because as you can tell, Senator O'Mara not happy, calling Democrat majorities out of touch with the affordability crisis crushing New York State and local taxpayers and their families and communities and local economies. Also, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano said nearly 2 months after the legally mandated deadline and 3 weeks after Governor Hochul announced a budget deal, New York finally has a state budget. A process fraught with confusion and a lack of transparency has finally concluded, but its product isn't pretty. A monstrosity of a budget coming in over $268 billion. This budget continues us down the unsustainable path of even more uncontrolled increased spending, taxes, and debt. This budget does not address the affordability crisis, it only exacerbates it. Our state budget has increased over $90 billion since Governor Hochul took office in 2021. Families and small businesses tighten their financial belts and continue to make difficult decisions every day, but unfortunately, New York State fails to do so. I think my Democrat colleagues in Albany think it's their money. They continue to spend and forget it's the taxpayers' money. That's just sad and wrong. Certainly, with a budget this big, there are, of course, some good things. For example, the electric school bus mandate was delayed. Additional CHIPS funding was provided for municipalities to help improve our local roads, bridges, and culverts. And small steps in the right direction, were taken to modify and delay parts of the CLCPA. We also finally passed the death gamble legislation to help protect the pensions for our dedicated corrections officers and their families. I have supported those policies in the past and will continue to do so in the future. Unfortunately, this might be the least transparent budget process I've ever seen in my years in the State Assembly and is the latest state budget since 2010. I'll continue to be vocal and tireless advocate for common sense policies that address the affordability, public safety, and quality of life crisis facing New Yorkers because they deserve nothing less. Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, who will be joining us on the program live from Albany next Tuesday, said that he is a no vote and was a no vote on the irresponsible state budget. Stopping the exodus of people and businesses from New York begins with responsible, common sense budget that cuts spending and taxes, said Sempolinski. That's why I've been fighting, and that's why I voted no on this budget. The governor and Albany Democrats have given us another record-breaking budget of more than $250 billion that will increase the burden of New York's hard-working taxpayers. He noted that New York spending is almost as much as Texas and Florida combined, 2 states with higher population and 2 states that New Yorkers are fleeing to escape the high cost of living. I believe government, said Semplinsky, should be judged by results, not intentions. The governor and Albany Democrats like to talk about making life more affordable for New Yorkers. This budget won't do it. What are some of the things we're looking at in the budget? I'm glad you asked. More than 8 million New Yorkers are set to get a check this year to offset rising utility costs. I'm not sure what your utility costs look like. I'm guessing what Governor Hochul and the Democrats are going to give you, some of your own taxpayer money back, is not going to put too much of a dent in it, but maybe your bills are a lot different than mine. The Assembly and the Senate agreed to spend $1 billion on checks of up to $200. Hochul said, we know New Yorkers need some relief. They need utility relief. The bills are just getting higher and higher, and it's so discouraging for our families. Well, maybe go back and change some more of the policies and the climate policy decisions that you made, because obviously we know that the utility companies are not clean as the fresh-driven snow, but we also know that a lot of these fees, a lot of the cost is coming from these unrealistic goals that were set by Albany for climate policy. So how will you get your $200 check? If you're married and filed a joint income, or if you are a qualified surviving spouse, you will receive a $150 check if your income was between $150,000 and $300,000 or less. People in those categories will get a $200 check if their income is $150,000 or less. People who filed single or ahead of household returns in 2024 will get a $100 check if their income was $150,000 or less. So somewhere between $200 and $100 to ease that burden. Will that, let me ask, does anybody out there, can anybody say that let's say you get the max of $200, does that pay for your most recent electric and or gas bill? I think that's fair to ask. Also, just because we're talking about what's in the budget, guess what we learned? Out of the $269 billion state budget, $1 million will be provided to operating a new hip-hop museum in the Bronx, the borough known as the birthplace of the music genre hip-hop. The museum is anticipated to open its door by year's end when construction of its $80 million, 52,000 square foot home at the Bronx Point development along the Harlem River in Mill Pond Park is completed. The museum will be a cultural anchor in the district. So $1 million in the budget for operating aid to help launch the hip hop museum. There we go. How about we end on that note? I want to thank everybody who joined us this morning. Thank you for all the comments, all the back and forth. As I mentioned, next week we've got a busy week. Oh, also we got to thank Gabe Rossetti for being on the program. The lessons from Canada on assisted suicide with the Twin Tiers Forum again is being held June 9th at 6:30 p.m. at the American Legion in South Corning. It's open to all. RSVPs are encouraged but not necessary. On next week's programs, Tuesday we'll be talking with Assemblyman Joe Semplinsky. Wednesday, Sheriff Jim Allard. And Thursday, Saritha Kamatoretti. She's running for New York State Attorney General on the Republican ticket. She will be facing Letitia James. So if you have any questions for any of our guests next week, get them to me ahead of time. And make sure you join us every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I hope you have a great weekend, a fun and safe weekend. And we'll see you back here Monday morning, bright and early. I look forward to it already.